Hey everyone, this is Nathan Williams with BlackRain79.com, and I'm back here with another hand history review for you guys. So today's hand was sent to me by Alexander from Ukraine, and this hand was played on PokerStars. As you can see there, it's NL5 and 6max. So Alexander's got the jacks on the button there, so let's jump right into the action. So villain 20 comes in for a, what is that, about a 2.5x open. Villain 21 calls, and so what should Alexander do here? What should we do here? So I definitely agree with his decision here to 3-bet. In general, I mean, pocket jacks, especially in 6max, is just so far ahead of an opening range. This is definitely just a 3-bet for me, or squeeze in this situation, because there's a caller in between. So the blinds end up folding, villain 20 folds, and villain 21 comes along for the ride. So before we head to the flop, let's get into the HUD stats, the reads. Alexander told me this guy is a 24-19-1. That's VPIP, PFR, and aggression factor. As always, if you don't know what these numbers mean, they are HUD stats, and there'll be a link in the description below this video so you can get these numbers on your screen if you want to. But basically, what these numbers indicate to me is that this player is this guy is a reasonably tight, basically a regular and a passive. I would say sort of a tight passive player, essentially. 24 is getting up there a little bit for VPIP at 6max, but the one aggression factor is over 104 hands, by the way. One aggression factor is the lowest it can possibly be, of course. And a lot of the regs that you see at these stakes, as I've talked about so many times on my blog, videos, and my books, are that sort of tight passive player that they're kind of just in there waiting for the nuts, and they typically only make a lot of strong plays when they have the nuts. So let's just keep all that in mind going forward into this hand. So pretty good flop for jacks there. Villain 21 checks, and Alexander goes ahead and makes the little over half pot, I guess that is, c-bet. I think the sizing is good, and I definitely agree with c-betting in this spot. So let's see how the action plays out. So Villain 21 comes in for the 3x sort of raise there. So this is this is a really, really difficult spot, guys. I mean, I'm sure you probably encountered this many times at these stakes. You're probably asking yourself, what do you do? So as we talked about before, with the one aggression factor, the fact that this guy looks like a sort of tight passive player to me, honestly, this is a pretty scary check raise to me. When I look at this board, there's not really any draws that he can have, and there's not really any two pairs that he can have either, but there are a lot of hands that could be sets on this board. When somebody calls a raise pre-flop, like this player did, and then calls a 3-bet, typically they're going to have hands like pocket nines, pocket fours, pocket deuces. And as we know, this guy is a tight passive player. As we said, there's not really too many draws, but if he somehow did have some sort of draw, like for instance a king queen of diamonds on this flop, I don't expect a tight passive player to be check raising with that hand, especially in a 3-bet pot. I expect that player to probably just go check call most of the time with that hand here. So honestly, when I look at this raise here, I'm not really too happy with my hand in this spot. And as gross as it sounds, I think that I would fold here most of the time. Now, Alexander does not agree with my assessment, and he decides to go all in. And I want to say that there's nothing particularly wrong with that play. I think that in a 3-bet pot, if you just felt your overpairs with, assuming it's 100 big blinds stacks effective before the start of the hand, if you just felt your overpairs all the time, you're not honestly making a huge mistake, because guys, I mean, they can't really call your 3-bets out of position with a hand like pocket fours and expect to be profitable here in the long run. It's just not going to happen. However, I think that if you truly want to get ahead in these games, you do need to be able to make some tight folds, especially against a tight passive player in a spot like this, because I think they're going to have it too much of the time, versus a tight aggressive reg who again might be capable of making this play with a king queen of diamonds type hand, or a loose aggressive player, or any kind of recreational player. I'm probably not getting away from the hand, but against this specific player type, I think that I would probably lean a little bit more towards fold here. Also, if I was going to ship here, I would also, it's a very minor thing, but I would prefer to have like the aces or the kings here. So just in the off chance that he is slow playing a hand like kings or queens or something like that here that's a higher overpair, that we're at least beating that too. So overall, I think it's a little bit close on the flop here. I definitely don't fault Alexander for shipping here in a 3-bet pot. I definitely don't think it's terrible, but I personally would lean a little bit more towards folding. So anyways, let's see how the hand plays out. Villain 21 does decide to make the call, and we'll see how the hand plays out. And he shows up with the old King 9, which is quite interesting. And, of course, hits it on the river there. So while I did not consider this hand to be in his range, as we talked about before, this is a tight passive player. And when a tight passive player check raises the flop, especially in a 3-bet pot like that, I expect him to have a very strong hand. And King 9, I just turned on the equity stats there, and I think if we actually go back to the flop here, you'll probably see I was going to guess around 50%, so he's actually a slight favorite on the flop. As you can see there at 52%. I think the main educational point in this hand is that when you see one of these tight passive players, again, we're referring to the aggression factor of 1 there, who makes this very, very aggressive play on the flop here, I think that he's going to have a very, very strong hand, a large majority of the time, and even in a spot like this where he's probably on the bottom end of his range. Again, I thought he had probably gonna have a lot of sets here, but even in this spot here at the bottom end of his range, you guys can see the numbers right in front of you. He was actually a small favorite on the flop. So I would lean towards, in a spot like this, of making a very difficult, tough laydown on the flop. And against tight and aggressive, loose aggressive players and all recreational players, I'd probably jam here. And it's a minor point, but I would prefer to have aces or kings when I'm jamming here as well. It makes a small difference just in the odd chance that he's slow playing an overpair himself. However, I want to know what you guys think about this hand, so make sure you let me know in the comments below. Super interesting spot. Thank you for sending me this hand, Alexander. Let me know what you guys think. Would you have played this hand the same way? Would you have made a folds on the flop? Would you a lot of different ways? Would you maybe have just flat called pre-flop? Let me know what you think in the comments below. Make sure you like this video and subscribe to my channel as well if you want to see hand history reviews and micro stakes poker strategy videos like this. I'm putting them out all the time. Lastly, make sure you download a copy of my free ebook. It's the top link in the description below. It's called Massive Profit at the Micros. It's a 50-page little free poker strategy guide that I wrote that gives you my complete strategy on how I crush these kind of stakes right here. So thanks a lot for watching, guys. It's been Nathan Williams with BlackRain79.com.